Good evening to you all. Welcome to CSB Academy Current Affairs Bulletin. Today's news in Rajasthan, again, Governor sends back the Cabinet's proposal to conduct assembly session for the third time. So, the Governor sends back the proposal by the Cabinet to conduct the assembly session. So, Rajasthan political turmoil is yet to be resolved. It might lead to a constitutional crisis also. Next important news, America and Australia, they see key role for India in Indo-Pacific region. They see key role for India. As you all know, recently India had a virtual summit with Australia. Security in the Indo-Pacific region is a key to India and Australia also, particularly with respect to China. All the four countries, India, America, Australia, Japan, they are all very wary about Chinese aggrandizement in the Indo-Pacific region. You all know that we have a concept called Quad: India, America, Australia, and Japan. And already India, America, and Japan have Malabar exercises. They are partners in Malabar exercises. And Australia was keen to join in Malabar. So today, US and Australia expressed serious concerns about China's recent coercive and destabilizing actions across the Indo Pacific region. So, China's behavior was also condemned by Australia, America, and other countries in the Indo Pacific region. One more important news today that was highlighted in the regional newspapers like Inadu also. It was a news from last 3-4 days. Why China is very particular about Galwan Valley. Why it is so touchy about Galwan Valley. The reason is generally people say it is historical, geographical, strategic, but above all, availability of reserves of natural gas, petroleum, minerals, and rare earth elements. Availability of reserves of natural gas, petroleum, minerals, rare earth elements is a major reason for China's aggression in the Galwan Valley. This is the important thing you need to point out. One more important news today, which was mentioned in Hindu paper in the editorial page. RIC, Russia, India, China, RIC. You all know that on June 23rd, RIC virtual summit was conducted. And many countries in the world and many IR experts have thought that India will not attend the summit. In spite of Chinese tensions, in spite of our border escalated tensions, India attended RIC virtual summit. RIC means Russia, India, China. And what is this RIC? Actually, RIC is an informal group that have come into that have formed like a group in the early 2000, particularly to counter the Western influence, American influence, particularly. And all the three countries, they initially worked for multipolar world. After the Cold War in 1991, America always tried to maintain that the world have become unipolar. America is the only one power in the world. But Russia, India, China in the early 2000s formed RAC to work for the multipolar world. Not only that, Russia, India, China share their membership in BRICS, share their membership in SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And we call them as triangle also, Russia, India, China triangle. There's a word called TRIOCA, TRIOKA, Russia, India, China, TRIOCA. All these things are mentioned in the today's Hindu paper editorial page article RIC. And now at present, China, India have divergence of interest with respect to territorial issues. Even Russia, China, things are not going very fine nowadays. And yesterday there's a news that Russia temporarily suspended delivering S-400 missile system to China. Temporarily suspended. So there are various issues that are going on between RIC countries, between and among RIC countries. But still, RIC is very crucial in the world. Next important news: Turkey. Turkey today have passed a controversial law relating to the regulation of social media. You all know Turkey's Tayyip Erdogan. He is AKP. His party name is AK Party. So today, already the Turkey media, complete media was controlled by the government. Media should not criticize the government in the Turkey. Already media, 90% of media was controlled by the government. Now, Turkey wanted to regulate social media also. Even social media channels from the foreign countries should also follow Turkey's regulations. If they want to spread their news in Turkey, they have to follow Turkish regulations. And the recent law, today a law passed in Turkey's parliament, the law requires that foreign social media should appoint Turkish-based representatives. Turkish-based representatives. So to scrutinize the content, if the content is against Turkey's interest, we have to remove the content. Otherwise, Turkey will impose fines, block the sites, or ban the advertisements to that social media. So this is Turkey's plan. Recently, Turkey's government was criticized in the social media for its negligent attitude towards COVID patients, negligent attitude for towards COVID pandemic, and also Turkish government rightist approach, conservative approach. So there is a lot of criticism, particularly from Kurdish parties also and Kurds also all over the world. So this is also an issue in Turkey now. And next important news, the much awaited news. Today we have received 5 Rafale aircrafts. Prime Minister of India welcomed the arrival of first batch of 5 Rafale jets at the IAF station, Indian Air Force Station, Ambala. The 5 fighter aircrafts, they were flown for 7,000 kilometers, and they have made air-to-air refueling in the UAE, and India actually brought 36 aircrafts, Rafale aircrafts, with an estimated cost of 58,000 crores through an intergovernmental agreement with France. That is the SALT. The SALT. And Rafales have very strong capacity, and they were combat proven. They can go for good combat wars also. In Afghanistan, Libya, and Mali, France actually used them. In Afghanistan, Libya, and Mali, France actually used them in their air force, French air force. And each Rafale aircraft have 14 storage stations for weapons. Each Rafale aircraft have 14 storage stations for weapons. And Rafale can have very good combat capacity also. So Rafale aircrafts first uh, level have come to India, and 5 aircrafts actually come to Ambala. Have actually come to Ambala. Today's most important news, I can say today's top news. uh, New educational policy was approved by the cabinet. New educational policy 2020. And the most important thing which I need to mention here is our Ministry of HRD, Human Resource Development. Our Ministry of HRD, Human Resource Development, was renamed as Education Ministry. Cabinet approved this name change along with all new educational policy and draft proposals. Cabinet approved this. This is the most important news. Actually, in the early days, Ministry of HRD is called Ministry of Education. In the year 1985, Rajiv Gandhi have changed the name to Ministry of HRD. Now again, in 2020, the name was changed. according to Kasturi Rangan Committee's recommendations to Ministry of Education. To Ministry of Education. So this is the most important change, and the ministry has proposed this changing of the name to focus more on education and learning. To focus more on education and learning. You all know that new educational policy cabinet approved today. Initially, TSR Subramanian Committee have recommended, but those recommendations are not taken into consideration. Later on, Kastur Rangan Committee have given recommendations. Today's educational policy that was adopted, approved by the cabinet, were proposed by Kastur Rangan Committee, and feedback was taken. It was kept in the public domain, and people's feedback was taken. And we have educational policy 1968, we have educational policy 1986. After almost 34 years, we have this new educational policy 2020. So this is very important. And government said in the educational policy, we are not going to have incremental changes, means step by step. Now we are going to have systematic change and transformative change. We are going to have systematic change and transformative change. uh, on an average, around 4% of GDP is spent on education. But the goal was set to 6% of GDP. We have to spend 6% of GDP to our education, to develop our education. And technology in the education, in the planning, teaching, learning, in all levels, in all education sector, technology should be improved. Technology. And now, education from 3 years to 18 years was particularly taken care of. 3 years to 18 years, right to education from 3 years of age to 18 years of age. More emphasis is given to vocational education also. Emphasis was given to vocational education also. And there are so many things. And in this particular education, new education policy, they wanted to have foundation stage 3 to 8 years, pre-primary stage 8 to 11 years, preparation stage 11 to 14 years, secondary stage 14 to 18 years. So they have given so many levels of education stages also, and they have also mentioned about higher education. They are going to establish Higher Education Council of India. They are going to establish Higher Education Council of India also. So many changes were brought. We'll have a detailed lecture on that after government website gives this information. What all information we got about this approved cabinet approved education policy is only through newspapers. By tomorrow we'll get complete details in the website. Next important news: National Green Tribunal. It sets tough conditions for commercial use of groundwater. So for industrial purpose, for commercial use of groundwater, National Green Tribunal have given many guidelines to impose tough conditions. National Green Tribunal asked authorities to be very strict in granting permits to the industrial use of groundwater. NGT, whenever you read something about such institutions, you should read whether it is a constitutional body, statutory body, or non statutory body. NGT is a statutory body created by National Green Tribunal Act 2010. National Green Tribunal Act. NGT is a statutory body. NGT recently said you should have very strict provisions for commercial use of groundwater, industrial use particularly. Commercial use here means for selling, for industrial use, all these things. NGT also have struck down the Central Groundwater Authority's guidelines, recent guidelines given by the Central Groundwater Authority. The Central Groundwater Authority says that if you put lot of restrictions on commercial use of groundwater, then industrial production will come down, employment opportunities will come down, economy will get affected. All these things Central Groundwater Authority said. But NGT said nothing doing. You need to have strict punishments if there was a misuse of or excessive use of groundwater for industrial purpose without proper EIA. What is EIA? Environmental Impact Assessment. Without following proper environmental impact assessment, if you commercially use groundwater, that is not permissible. That is not permissible. Even this is the news. And next important news: WWF. WWF have given a report. 3 billion animals affected by Australian bushfires. You know that 6 months back we have Australian bushfires. 3 billion animals affected by Australian bushfires. and 143 million mammals, 2.46 billion reptiles, 180 million birds, 51 million frogs, and so many have died because of bushfires, directly and indirectly. Indirectly through starvation, dehydration, predation also. Not only directly by fire, but also by starvation, predation, and dehydration due to fires. So, for all these things, this is a news. And one more important news today is today, July 29th, is a Global Tiger Day. Global Tiger Day. And we have 13 tiger age countries in the world. There's a very important convention. There's a very important summit called St. Petersburg Tiger Summit. St. Petersburg. You might get a question. St. Petersburg Summit is relating to tiger conservation. Actually, in the St. Petersburg Summit, the goal is to double the tigers population by 2022. The goal is to double the tiger population by 2022. In India, we have 2,967 tigers, more than 70%. Around 70% of tigers in the world are in India. They are in India. And today is World Tiger Day. And India launched Project Tiger in 1973 to protect tigers. And India was highly successful in protecting the tigers. Tigers are considered as umbrella species. And their conservation actually saves many other animals. If you conserve the tiger, tiger conserves many other animals also. So it's very important to have this. And next, and you might get a prelims question also. What are tiger range countries in the world? What are the countries? There are 13 tiger range countries. They may give some of the names of the countries. They may ask you to choose Bangladesh, Vietnam, Cambodia, India, Bhutan, Thailand, Indonesia, Laos, China, Malaysia, Russia, Nepal, Myanmar. These are the tiger range countries actually. These are the tiger range countries. Next important news. Air pollution reduces average life expectancy in India by 5 years. Air pollution reduces average life expectancy in India by 5 years. Before COVID 19, you all know that air pollution is a serious issue in Delhi, but now it have come down. According to the recent study, India's 1.4 billion population are actually living in the pathetic conditions, and out of total population, 84% of the population in India are living in the areas which exceeds proper air quality standards. So we are 84% of the population in India are not having proper air quality. They are living in the air pollution conditions. This was a serious issue. And one more important news, Global Forest Assessment Report, recently released by FAO. This might be the direct question. You need to note it down. Global Forest Assessment Report given by FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization. You all know, I think, the headquarters of Food and Agriculture Organization are at Rome, Italy. And the report is released digitally, and it says that 236 countries, they have almost measured all the countries, and they have assessed from 1990 to 2020, 30 years, 3 decades. India is one of the important countries where India is almost in the third level, in the third position, in the third rank to increase forest cover. To increase the forest cover. In most of the countries in the world, forest cover was decreased. Forest cover was decreased. Africa has the largest annual rate of forest loss. Largest annual rate of forest loss between 2010 and 2020. So in Africa, forests are being lost. And the other news, European Union started imposing lot of restrictions to Hong Kong, particularly export restrictions. As you all know, China Hong Kong issues. China wanted to have more control on Hong Kong, and China has made so many controls in Hong Kong, and European Union wanted to restrict its exports to Hong Kong. This is the issue. And yesterday itself, I told India, Indonesia defense ministers meet. Indonesia is our one of the strong partners, and we are aiming to have trade by 2025 up to $50 billion. These are the important news for today. Tomorrow we'll meet with some other important news. Thank you.